Guys, this channel is called The Layman, and we just kind of unpack ideas. This is truly, truly free form, whereas on my other channel, I've kind of become more of a responder. Some of you are familiar with my other channel, Mr. Biscuit Speaks, and we have like 27,000 subscribers, something like that. This one, I'm growing a little bit more slowly. It's just my thoughts as I have them and just kind of growing in the moment. But I'm interested in this cognitive drift. I happen to be a theist. I'm a Christian. Um, I'm a mystic, but you can see right here on the side it says outdated beliefs, and under here it says God is a human idea. And what's unfortunate is like a lot of atheists use that as a critique, like God is just a human idea. I was like, so is general relativity. Just because something is a human idea doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad idea. Nevertheless, we are going to correspond with cognitive drift and see whether there is anything challenging of substance here. He starts with a Francis Bacon quote. It says, "Man is so made that he prefers to believe what he would like to be true." He prefers to believe what he would like to be true. Okay, maybe we're getting into criticism territory. Let's see if this actually takes shape.
Hello and welcome to Cognitive Drift. Why do people believe in God?
I think people believe in God because it gives them a normative order. A normative order is like what you should and shouldn't do. Is a narrative order means like the place that you are in the narrative, like you are a character in a story. It's very, very imbued with meaning, and human beings need meaning in order not to be cognitively limited. Speaking of cognitive drift.
Sounds like a simple question, but the answers go deep into human psychology, culture, and even survival instincts.
Truly.
People often assume faith is just about tradition or morality, but it's much more than that. It's an entire system built on need, emotional, social, and cognitive needs that shaped the human experience for thousands of years. Think about the earliest humans. They lived in a world that was unpredictable, dangerous, and full of questions they couldn't answer.
Facts.
Lightning strikes, floods, disease, these were terrifying mysteries. And when
They still are to some degree.
our minds don't have answers, we create them. We're wired to look for patterns, for causes, for meaning, because uncertainty is uncomfortable.
Uncertainty is not just uncomfortable, it actually is literally dangerous. The reason that we create and seek to create and establish order out of chaos is because when we are confronted with the intercategorical, it is literally dangerous. By intercategorical, I mean when your mind is paralyzed in its capacity to categorize a threat. So, I mean, if there's a rustle in the bushes, right, that could literally mean the end of life. It's not just a meaningless bias that we don't like to, not know things. It's pretty important to be able to categorize.
Unbearable. If something bad happened, the human brain wanted a reason, not just a random accident, but a story that explained why. That tendency didn't go away when societies got bigger and more complex. It stayed, and belief in gods became the ultimate answer to almost everything. But why does this explanation feel so?
I don't think that's true. The belief in gods became the answer to almost everything. Like, why did that lightning strike over there? The belief in gods. Why do people die? The belief in gods. I know that he's trying to say something different, but it's like it's an example kind of sophistry. He's not really saying that much in that statement. It sounds deep. It might be like a deepity.
So powerful? Because it speaks to the strongest human fear, the unknown. And the biggest unknown of all is death. Every living thing dies, and every conscious being eventually realizes it, that awareness brings a weight that no other animal carries.
That's not true. That's not true either. I mean, he says it speaks.
Because it speaks to the strongest human fear, the unknown.
That's true.
And the biggest unknown of all is death.
Perhaps.
Every living thing dies, and
Right.
every conscious being eventually realizes it.
Every conscious being realizes what?
That awareness brings a weight that no other.
No, not all conscious beings realize this. I mean, humans are a conscious being that realize it in general, but there are more conscious beings than just human beings. I mean, human beings metacognize, and that's the reason that we fixate on shit like that, but animals and insects don't.
Animal carries. So humans looked for a way to make that burden lighter. Belief in God offered not just a creator, but a protector, a plan, and most importantly, the promise that death isn't really the end. For millions of people, that hope alone is enough to hold on to faith.
Here's the thing. If God doesn't exist, then the belief in God, if it really has that adaptive capacity that cognitive drift is saying that it has, the capacity to eliminate the fear of the unknown which comes with death, I would just say that religion is an all-around win. Like, what would be the importance of truth if the truth is not good? I mean, that's a real question. I want you to answer that in the chat. If the truth weren't good and had no adaptive qualities, would you desire to interact with it? For instance, would you like to know the date of your own death? I mean, it would be true, but I wouldn't.
No matter what evidence says, and hope is not the only factor. Belief also fulfills a social function. In early tribes, shared rituals and shared gods were tools for survival.
Facts.
They created unity, trust, and cooperation.
Facts.
When a group believed the same stories, it built a sense of us. And in a world where outsiders could be a threat, that sense of us meant safety.
Facts.
Religions became some of the first systems of law and order. Before governments, before courts, there were rules backed by divine authority. Break them, and you weren't just breaking a rule, you were defying a god.
One hundo. See, now he's getting into this little pocket where he's spitting right now.
That's a powerful motivator when the punishment is eternal. But here's something fascinating. Our brains didn't just passively accept these ideas. They actively evolved to reinforce them. Cognitive scientists call it hyperactive agency detection. In simple terms, our minds are quick to assume intent behind events. If you hear a rustle in the bushes, it might be the wind or a predator. Assuming it's a predator keeps you alive. That survival bias made us hypersensitive to agents, beings with purpose and power.
He calls it the survival bias. I think the cognitive science community would call it the availability heuristic. You know, you're walking in like a parking garage and you hear like footsteps behind you. You might like freeze up, goosebumps, the whole thing. You might like run to the car, right? Even though the person behind you might just be the waiter returning your card. You might have left it at the bar. It's actually far more likely not to be a threat, but you go into this kind of better be safe than sorry mode. I think he's talking about the availability heuristic there. But I mean, so far I haven't heard anything which strikes me with overwhelming force regarding these arguments here, guys.
Apply that to storms, earthquakes, or life itself, and suddenly you're surrounded by invisible agents shaping your fate, gods. Now, this doesn't mean people are foolish for believing. These tendencies are natural, and in many ways they helped humanity thrive.
Factual.
But they also open the door for systems that exploit those instincts.
Facts.
Religious institutions grew massive not just because of belief, but because belief gave them leverage, control of morality, control of behavior, and often control of resources.
Guys, I'm 100% with him so far. I think religion has kind of has gotten into the hands of the powerful and master manipulators. It's a true problem that he's going into here.
If people are convinced their eternal soul depends on obedience, they will follow, even sacrifice. History is full of wars, crusades, and persecutions driven by this power dynamic. Yet people rarely see it that way, because the idea of divine will makes those actions feel justified. What's more interesting is how belief persists even when explanations improve. Today we know why thunder happens. We understand disease, earthquakes, eclipses. But removing the mystery doesn't remove the need for meaning.
100%.
Science can explain the how, but the why. Why there's something instead of nothing. Why life exists. Those questions don't vanish. And for many, God remains the easiest placeholder for everything unknown.
The supernatural remains the placeholder for the unknown. I think the supernatural is a 16th century term referring specifically to things that we don't know quite yet. The word supernatural doesn't appear in many ancient texts. It certainly doesn't appear in the Bible, for instance. And I hardly know what it's mean when it's used. But he's still talking here. I'm going to give it about another minute, and I got to go have dinner.
It's a mental shortcut that feels satisfying even if it doesn't solve the problem. And then there's morality. A lot of people believe in God because they think morality needs him.
Now, I'm convinced that in order to, I think that God is the superlative that makes the comparative terms like good and evil make sense. And it is also my interpretation of one Friedrich Nietzsche, right? I can actually get to the page. I write in my books, guys. I don't know if you guys write in the books, but write in books. I think, look, I scribble all over my books when Nietzsche makes a good point, which he always does. Nietzsche spits. Let me find it. I think it's on page 2 where Nietzsche talks about morality. I think he shared the same idea as me. He says, it served the advocates of God insofar as it conceded to the world, in spite of suffering and evil, the character of perfection, including freedom. Words like evil appeared full of meaning. As I think that what Nietzsche was trying to say there is like, look, words like good and evil are only meaningful so long as there is a superlative for which the comparative term evil makes sense. So let's see if cognitive drift can relieve me of that presupposition.
Without a divine lawgiver, they fear everything becomes meaningless. If there's no God, what stops us from killing each other?
That's a different question. I think even Ayn Rand, who was a great ethical egoist, would say that you shouldn't just kill people whenever you want to. But another answer to the question, what stops us from killing each other, is the fact that we don't necessarily want to kill each other. Some of us like having each other around. We like human connection.
But morality isn't a divine gift.
Yes, it
It's
is.
a social adaptation.
No.
Cooperation.
Nah, I'm just playing. I'll rewind it a little bit.
Morality isn't a divine gift. It's a social adaptation. Cooperation and empathy helped humans survive. Groups that work together thrive more than groups that didn't.
He's walking dangerously close to an is-ought fallacy, right? He's talking about what did happen, and he hasn't gotten to the ought point yet, but we're going to wait.
And if we're together, we get to be together. Over time, behaviors like fairness, loyalty, and compassion became part of our psychology because they worked.
That's more history. That's what is. I'm still waiting for him to get to morality, which is, I'm waiting for him to get to the normative part. Normativity. What ought we do?
You don't need eternal punishment to know that hurting others damages trust and stability.
That's true.
We build morality the same way we build language, through evolution, experience, and culture.
We build morality through evolution, experience, and culture. We evolved to prefer certain things, to resist certain things, and to cling to other things. Experience would be, there are certain experiences that I'd like to have again, and certain experiences which I'd like to avoid in the future. And then culture. Culture can tell us what they think we ought to do, but the cultural prescription doesn't necessarily imply a normative component either. So it seems that he has failed in this project of letting us know how we can get to morality from what is.
There's also the emotional factor, maybe the biggest factor of all.
Okay.
Life is full of suffering. People lose loved ones, face injustice, deal with pain that feels unbearable.
That's a lot of what is. Let's see if he can get to the ought.
In those moments, belief can feel like the only relief.
Okay.
The idea that everything happens for a reason can soothe the chaos of reality. And who wouldn't want that comfort? It doesn't make the belief true, but it makes it deeply appealing. When the human brain weighs logic against emotional...
Guys, I don't think we're going to get it. I'm sorry. Maybe he says it in like the next 5-10 seconds, but my wife is going to, she's going to slay me if I don't rescue her from my 4-year-old. Let me know in the comments if I did an okay job. Cognitive drift. For it is what it is. I think he said a lot of things which were trivially true, but I am not convinced so far. Guys, like, share, subscribe, comment. Let me know what I got wrong. Let's correspond.